Hello everyone, welcome to my short commentary. So, what's been happening lately? There's a really interesting piece of news trending on the mainland internet. The topic is, Liu Shirhan's school uniform is a hit in Africa. So how did this start? A blogger in the African country of Angola filmed some locals wearing Chinese school uniforms, and on the uniforms, you could see Chinese characters like Qinggaosu Xiaolu Primary School Liu Shirhan. On the afternoon of November 5th, the blogger Shalo, who shot the related video, told a reporter from Jimu News on the mainland. There are a lot of second-hand clothes in Angola, and clothes from China are really common there. In the video Shalo posted, there's a black child wearing a blue sports jacket, and on the front, it says Qinggaosu Xiaolu Primary School. Around the waist area, there's a name tag with Liu Shirhan on it. Some netizens commented, guessing that this second-hand school uniform might have been donated from China. And Luo told the reporter from Jimu News that this video was filmed in Angola, which is in the southwest of Africa. He has lived in Angola for over a year, and in Angola, there are a lot of second-hand school uniforms. Clothes from China are really common there. According to his understanding, the price of a second-hand piece of clothing from China in Angola ranges from about 7 to 38 renminbi. After the video about the prices went viral, some netizens questioned whether the content of the video was staged with a script. On November 5th, he released another video to deny this. The video showed about 20 Africans in succession, all wearing clothes with Chinese characters on them. Among these were second-hand school uniforms and sports jerseys, as well as work uniforms for food delivery and courier workers, and even kindergarten backpacks. Shallow explained that these were all things he had filmed over the past year or so. He also mentioned investment enterprises and financial risk management. Sher Wenhao said, from an economic perspective, the second-hand clothing recycling industry is much bigger than people imagine. Just by looking at a single piece of clothing, you can understand the strength of China's manufacturing industry. Currently, Africa is the world's largest market for second-hand clothing imports. In 2021, the value of second-hand clothing imports reached $1.84 billion. Among this, China contributed $624 million, accounting for one-third, and for the first time replaced the EU as Africa's largest source of second-hand clothing. In 2024, the size of Africa's apparel market has already reached $70.58 billion, with a compound annual growth rate of 5.16%. Meanwhile, in 2025, the market size of China's used clothing recycling is expected to exceed 128 billion RMB, and by 2023, it will surpass 200 billion RMB every year. The growth rate has reached 9.3%. In Africa, second-hand clothing is a necessity for survival for most people, not just a consumer choice. Currently, in most African countries, the per capita GDP is less than $2,000. Only 10% of consumers can afford to buy new clothes, 50% rely on second-hand clothes, and 40% can't even afford used clothes. Chinese second-hand clothes are cheap, with most selling for around 10 yuan, which is about the same as the local price. The daily wage level is low, and most of the exported clothes are durable and practical, which suits the needs of the local labor market. That's why they're very popular among African residents. In fact, some countries have basically come to rely on the second-hand clothing industry for their everyday wear, with Mozambique being the most typical example. Out of its 34 million people, 85% depend on second-hand clothes for the long term. Besides, clothing from China is usually brightly colored and comes in a wide variety of styles, which is very suitable for African consumers. At the same time, this aesthetic matches well, and the average Asian clothing size generally fits the body shapes of African consumers. Plus, functional clothing like school uniforms and work uniforms are especially popular because of their durability. What's even more interesting is that many of these clothes still have Chinese brand labels or characters on them, which gives them an international flair and turns them into a status symbol. China's second-hand clothing industry chain is extremely mature. Not only has it already formed a complete circulation chain of recycling, sorting, disinfecting, and exporting, but even the processing techniques are highly advanced. Various repair and refurbishment skills are exported to Europe and America, and there's really no comparison. A second-hand t-shirt that has crossed continents can be said to carry the hopes of African families for a dignified life. To sum up this hot topic simply, firstly, China has replaced the EU as the largest source of second-hand clothing. This is evidence of China's industrial revival, and at the same time, it's also proof that the living standards of Chinese people are continuously improving. Secondly, African people see second-hand clothes with Chinese characters as trendy items, which reflects that Chinese-style modernization has already become a street fashion in developing countries. However, the Western world doesn't seem to feel much about this phenomenon. But recently, the Western tech industry has been paying attention to another Chinese trend. This has sounded the alarm. Last month, Bloomberg published an article noting that while American and Western companies see China as a potential rival in the global artificial intelligence (AI) tools market, they've discovered that Chinese AI models are rising in Africa. While Western companies focus on securing high-profit corporate contracts, Chinese companies have taken a different path, leveraging low-cost, high-efficiency advantages to bring AI technology to millions of Africans. African startups are designing products for their users. A leader of an African company said that the Chinese model offers them greater flexibility, lower costs, and the potential to build local data sovereignty. The report mentioned that earlier this year, in a conference room at the headquarters of a Nairobi-based startup called Hana in Kenya, a group of executives from various tech companies across the African continent gathered together. So who was giving the talk about AI's potential that everyone was listening to? It was Harrison Lee, Chief Solutions Architect for Huawei Cloud in Southern Africa. It was the much-discussed global AI players. During his speech, Harrison Lee pointed out that China's DeepSeek can rival Silicon Valley's OpenAI at a lower cost, and it can also run on more affordable hardware. After the event, he said DeepSeek is just too hot right now, no one here wants to talk about anything else, honestly. He said this is basically the perfect pitch. Outside of South Africa, computing resources across the African continent are often expensive and scarce, so making AI more affordable and energy efficient will make this hottest global technology accessible to more people, and will also help African startups design products for their users. Hello's CEO, Jituro, is currently overseeing the development of the company's AI-powered chatbot. Last year, he tried out several options. Every Western model impressed him, but none were suitable for a young company that needs to keep costs down until DeepSeek burst onto the scene this January. Jituro said he started celebrating the moment he first heard about DeepSeek. He praised its affordable price, and also revealed that very soon, he would migrate Hana's AI chatbot to the DeepSeek system. According to Bloomberg, most Western attention is now focused on Western tech companies competing for lucrative contracts in the US and Middle East, but very few people are paying attention to the development of AI on the African continent. This conference in Nairobi, Kenya, vividly showcased the different path taken by Chinese companies. The report concluded that OpenAI and other American companies are almost entirely focused on proprietary AI, with their software, training data, and algorithms all strictly controlled by the parent company, and users have to pay to access them. In contrast, Chinese companies like Huawei and Alibaba are developing open-source AI models that can be accessed and modified for free, allowing companies to avoid expensive licensing-based products. This is extremely attractive for African startups and innovation hubs, making it a very appealing option for them. Bloomberg drew a connection to China's Belt and Road Initiative and the rise of China's global influence, which has caused panic in the West. After that, the report, from a Western perspective, labeled Chinese products with a series of negative tags like the China threat, privacy concerns, debt traps, and government subsidies. However, the report also admits that in Africa, just like in Latin America and Southeast Asia, China has the advantage of being a latecomer. While American tech companies are aiming to empower these regions, China is already making its move. At the same time, Chinese companies like Huawei are attracting consumers in emerging markets with low costs and aggressive marketing. Now, Chinese firms dominate Africa's data centers, 5G wireless systems, fiber optic networks, smartphones, and even application software. For many African tech entrepreneurs, China's large-scale, low-cost AI models are the best choice for building their businesses. Marif, a computer science professor at the University of Pretoria in South Africa and co-founder of the AI Research Lab, said that small teams all across Africa are working hard to fine-tune deep models for local applications. He said, "We will see results later this year." Adionbi, co-founder and CEO of a Nigerian AI startup, said that Chinese models offer them greater flexibility, lower costs, and localization. He mentioned the potential of data sovereignty, pointing out that in Nigeria, models from OpenAI and Gemini are hard to popularize due to high costs, licensing restrictions, and a lack of customization for local languages. Adionbi said that for African startups like theirs, these models are several orders of magnitude cheaper than their competitors. The African IT industry has also pointed out that Western models are not suitable for African users for a variety of reasons. For example, when American-made AI models handle foreign languages and unfamiliar terms, you need to purchase additional development permissions, so the computing costs for non-English users are often higher. He said that in San Francisco's worldview, the African linguistic landscape is basically erased. A large number of African startups are now scrambling to use Chinese AI models. Besides the hugely popular DeepSea, a Nigerian education startup has been fine-tuning Alibaba's Tony Qianwen 20 billion model. I've seen students able to use AI products for learning science and math offline. As for the so-called data privacy issues hyped up by the US and the West, the director and CEO of Smart Africa, an alliance driving Africa's digital agenda, bluntly said that Western model makers simply can't convince them to believe in this. Overall, the main purpose of AI, from a practical perspective, is to improve efficiency. The goal of improving efficiency is to create wealth and expand development opportunities. China believes in openness and inclusiveness, so everyone can work together to make the pie bigger. But the US and the West want to use technological superiority to establish hegemony. On the political level, they want to control the development space of developing countries, and on the economic level, they want to squeeze out every bit of profit. Secondly, Chinese products are now winning the favor of developing countries not by using underhanded or sneaky tactics. The most direct reason is the high cost-performance ratio. As for so-called data security issues, for Africa, being able to afford and use suitable products is what matters most, because there are already plenty of examples proving that it's actually American products that have backdoors. Thirdly, looking at it on a deeper level, if 2025 is the year of AI, then China's promising open-source AI models have already broken America's attempt to use closed systems and extremely high training costs to cut off other countries from developing AI, putting the West at a disadvantage. Hegemony can no longer run rampant. Fourth, the popularity of Chinese models in developing countries might create a strategic effect, like the countryside surrounding the cities, or maybe in some corner of Africa, a genius could use China's AI models to develop a groundbreaking new product that could change the world.